It's Elite Business Live 2024, and we're live from St. Paul's and streaming out around the world, or catching up. So wherever you're joining us from, welcome. Our theme, technology, AI, of course, the hottest topic of the day. But how do we implement it in practice? Well, in front of our studio audience, we have some brilliant guests. So thank you for being with us, Piers Linney. We're just in the wake of a fantastic keynote. And it's a bit of a reunion for me, because I get to say hello again to Elena Sinel, who's the founder of Teens in AI. Good to see you. Social entrepreneur. Now, your organization taking 12 and 18-year-olds, helping them tackle real-world issues. Notice you launched that at the UN's AI for Good Global Summit. When did you launch that, Elena?
2018.
2018, yeah.
We started working in the space in 2014, 2015, and with AI tech in 2017. So
already some questions on education coming in this morning. We'll come back to that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Erika Brodnock, very nice to see you. Founder and chief exec of Kinab. So this is fascinating, and we'll hear more about the power of coaching as well, by the way. So this is sort of at the intersection of well-being and technology, but also great product development. You literally wrote the book on diversity beyond gender. Kudos on that. But you're also a co-founder at Extend Ventures and the Black Funding Network. So you've got a hat stand of different roles, and it's always good to see you. By the way, Kinab, you should definitely look up. It is a well-being platform, and it's helping employees with personalized support. Erika, have I got that in the right zone?
That's exactly right, Ollie.
Good, no, it's good to see you. Thank you. McVal Osbourne, good to meet you today for the first time properly. McVal, co-founder of The Future Communicator. Well, who haven't you collaborated with? Uber, Google, Amazon, never heard of them. But you've also worked with brilliant organizations like Social Chain and Flight Story. I believe Stephen Bartlett driving both of those. We listen to him avidly. But also you work with a whole host of organizations today, including the UN, British Chamber of Commerce, and Virgin Media. Where physically are you based these days, McVal?
Actually, we're based out of the BuzzFeed offices currently, so just next to London Bridge, which is great. Yeah.
Thank you for being with us today. So I guess our theme really, and this will be driven by your questions, everyone, and tuning in. So please fire them in on any of these topics. But on implementing AI in your business, why don't Erika get us started? Because there's so much to demystify, I suppose. Is there a misconception about this whole space that we would almost sort of blast out of the way before we get into our chat? Any misconception about AI?
I think that there have been many misconceptions about AI, and over the years we've kind of had a lot of fear-mongering around, the computers are coming, the machines are coming, and they're going to take everybody's jobs, and it's going to be absolute pandemonium. And I'm really grateful to the team at OpenAI over the last sort of couple of years, because what they've done is they've actually created ChatGPT, and everybody's been able to use that and see that actually, rather than this being something that's coming to take over and obliterate the way that we work as humans, it can be something that just assists us and helps us and augments us in ways that haven't really been possible before. And I think that that's the best way of looking at AI. It's about looking at how we can use AI for good to democratize access. So in my field, for example, coaching is usually reserved for the C-suite of an organization. There are lots of things that you don't understand in an organization unless you've been to business school and you've already made it to the top of the chain. Now, so for people who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds that have been away from the office because they've had children, etc., that means we're missing huge swathes of the population, and 100%. We're not allowing them to progress to their potential.
And I'm going to pull on that thread of democratization as we go through. But McVal, in the spirit of busting misconceptions, what would you add?
You know, I guess I actually think that adoption of AI tools across businesses, larger businesses, is going to be harder than people think. I think we are living in a filter bubble of entrepreneurs that are following the same people on Twitter, reading the same newspapers, and we would think that everyone is living with ChatGPT as their homepage, right? So I walk into a lot of big businesses, a lot of comms teams, and people might be using ChatGPT 1 or 2 times per week.
Right, so I hosted a roundtable of Magic Circle law firms recently. Hype, 100%, implementation, 5%.
Yeah.
what is the biggest blocker for them adopting what's possible in practice? Be as blunt as you like.
Overwhelm. I think just complete overwhelm, seeing how many tools there are out there, and also safety concerns. I don't think it's something that's hard to use at all,
right.
But I think that there's a lack of clarity in terms of tools and models.
Okay.
And what's
So clear theory there that it's actually not as well implemented or adopted as we might be led to believe in our bubble. Elena, misconception, please.
I think people don't trust AI systems in the way that perhaps those who develop those systems anticipated. So we definitely are not seeing the adoption because people just don't trust it. It hallucinates, it makes a lot of mistakes. There are safety risks, particularly for children using those AI systems. When Snapchat AI came out, I think I was interviewed on the next day, being asked, what's happening, what's your take on this?
Yes.
And I mean, my take is it's too early. This AI system should never have been released so early. When ChatGPT-2 came out, again, I was on the caution side, on the fence, along with many other AI ethicists talking about the risks and the safety. And of course, the developers of those systems, who are they? They're definitely not black women. They're not.
Piers, that's a pretty serious allegation. So, you know, the doors of the chocolate factory have been smashed open. We're gorging ourselves. We're all going to be sick.
So we started implementing AI to help businesses get over this. So all day long, all we do is talk to businesses about this problem.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of things. So one is, Val was saying that large companies, it's an interesting one because large companies struggle sometimes to implement new technology, but they understand the potential of it and have the resources. So though they're struggling a bit, they are actually applying resource. And eventually, they're going to crack that nut. And what's interesting is that for SMEs and entrepreneurs, we used to go after the long tail, where we could add more value. And in the world of AI, the big companies see that they can hyper-personalize and also go after the long tail.
Okay, so I think we totally get that. I think Elena's pushing at something additional, which is about how responsible is it to have unleashed these tools, given some of the concerns. What do you say to that bit, Piers?
So we talk about policy and governance. We talked about regulation as a question earlier. So you have to have policy and governance in place because they're very, very powerful tools. But you need a sandbox almost. So you need somewhere where people can use it responsibly. And you've got some, which goes to the bottom left quadrant really, which are simple, it works. And again, you say, things hallucinate, they do. Look at Claude 3 Opus now. Its hallucinations are falling away very quickly. So the danger is, going back to my graph earlier, we always think that wherever we are on the exponential curve, it's going to continue in a linear fashion. AI today, no matter what part of it you talk about, is the worst it's ever going to be. So you need a sandbox, you need policy and governance, but you need some room to play with it.
All right, so I bet we'll have some follow-up questions on this. Erika, let me bring you back in, but I'm already starting to look out at getting our first round of questions if you want to put them online. Erika, come back in, please.
I do think that we also need to act responsibly in terms of who we invest in that's building AI. Because as it stands at the moment, I think Elena makes a solid point around the fact that most of the money that's being invested in AI teams is being invested in a very homogenous group, and therefore they will build homogenous models. And we need to look at the fact that this is fit for purpose for everybody.
So what's an example of the questions you'd like investors to be asking?
Well, I'd like them to start to look at diversity in teams, so that actually people start to think about the diversity in the models that they're building, and that those models aren't one size fits all.
100%, right. So we could do much more on this. Let's blow it back open, because I want our Elite Business Live audience to really think of the different ways that they could be harnessing AI. So, McVal, just help us get that thinking going a bit more. What's not been touched on?
I think that when it comes to harnessing AI in different ways, I look at it from an advertiser perspective, coming from social chain and social media advertising. From a generative AI perspective, it is an absolute game changer in terms of being able to produce a lot of content, video, imagery, text-based, and also brainstorm a lot of ideas there. And it is frightening to creatives, but it's also incredibly exciting to creatives. So I think that that's an opportunity that I think will create, vastly expand the way in which people can be creative.
So how concerned should someone be when they say, look, we've had some pretty wild creative ideas for an ad campaign, but the board have expressed concern about whether we'll be sued for infringement, for copyright? What do you say to that challenge at the board?
Well, I was working for a company that actually, the CEO asked me to create a tone of voice and a brand guidelines model to run against every piece of content that we created. So it would say, and you could actually tune something with a lot of lawyers and say, is this going to break any law? And then run any content through it. So it could effectively be both the creative engine and the checker, which is perhaps frightening.
That's a very interesting co-pilot. Carry on.
It's worth mentioning that whether you're Adobe, Google, Microsoft, they've all provided a backstop. If you're sued, they will pay out for you.
Interesting. We heard it here first. If that doesn't happen, then come back to Piers.
AI insurance.
Erika, I'd like to dive a little bit more into what you're doing with Kinab, because it's a real example, right? So just tell us a little bit more on how AI helps you do what you do.
We've built technology that leverages few-shot learning models. So it's incredibly innovative. We're starting to train AI using data sets that are leveraged and built by our company and collected from specific sources so that we can start to reduce the bias that is among the data set. And then we're turning around and saying, actually, how can we democratize access to coaching by having our AI act as a co-pilot to coaches and therapists so that they are able to have their services augmented and reach more people.
So what about, forgive me if this is already where you are, what about an AI coach?
So we will develop that, but we'll do that over time, and we'll ensure that it's safe. So while we're training, we need to make sure that actually if we have somebody that is black and trans, female presenting, differently abled, neurodiverse and Jewish, that we would be able to kind of make sure that all of those facets of that person's individuality and characteristics could be catered for by an AI. We don't have that at the moment because, as I say, AI is being built homogeneously. So until we're at that place, I don't think it would be right to let an AI coach somebody.
Interesting. Okay, Elena, just while we're on that theme of potential bias, some of the ethical questions, just help us think about that a little bit more. What are some questions that keep you really sort of thinking about this?
Oh my goodness, too many questions. Where do I begin? So obviously IP rights and concerns around that. Yes. Who owns the rights, and when things go wrong, who is responsible? Secondly, the big elephant in the room at the moment, and this was also highlighted in Davos, is the environmental cost. Even Sam Altman kind of admitted it, but I don't know what they're going to do about it.
I think the founder of OpenAI himself.
OpenAI himself has said that we're going into this catastrophic stage of development where large language model systems are so costly to run and to develop, not only the compute cost, but it's also the amount of water it needs to keep those data centers cool and everything. So it's incredible. Yeah. And that research actually just came out in the last few weeks, but there are quite a number of AI ethicists alongside me who keep advocating. Every time you do a prompt, consider this. Yeah. And we talk about all of these issues to our teenagers as well, because it's not just about, hey, I'm just going to go and use OpenAI ChatGPT to help me write my homework, but it's about what other risks are there with using those technologies.
So why don't we, you are permitted a plug on this. Tell us how you're doing that with teens in AI, because I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Well, we're now in 45 countries around the world. A lot of teenagers are coming to learn about how to build AI systems for impact. So we don't have any games, drag and drop systems. We actually teach them based on the problems that we give them, whether it's related to climate change or health and well-being and whatnot. We teach kids how to develop a model that predicts breast cancer. We teach kids how to deploy a system that offers personalized learning. And we explore various problems aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And as we teach them, we explore frameworks like design thinking. So we always start with a why. We don't just go into solutions mode. And of course, AI ethics is incredibly, incredibly important to us. Like, there is no program that runs without AI ethics.
So this is Teens in AI. I absolutely commend it to you. Okay, so let's start to take some questions. We've got some popping up here. That was very keen in the back row, so I'm very drawn to that. Here's a quick fire one for you, McVal. I'm a solo entrepreneur and run a digital marketing business. How can I use AI so I don't have to hire, my words, those pesky employees?
Oh, those pesky employees. So we actually did this for the International Trade Center, which is a UN body, and we were looking at how, so their remit is effectively trying to help entrepreneurs that are trying to export, do e-commerce, and help grow their businesses. And they don't have, because they're in developing countries, they don't have huge budgets for this kind of thing. And so we looked at a list of 100 different companies and different platforms that you can use from a marketing perspective that are fairly low cost, under 20 pounds a month. And it really depends what you're trying to create as a marketer, but I would say like ChatGPT is your best friend from a content creation perspective if you know the right prompts. It's all about the prompts themselves. But then when it comes to visual and video editing, I mean, my favorite right now is Veed. I don't know, I'm plugging someone else's product. VEED.io.
What does it do?
It allows you to take long-form footage and cut and edit it very quickly into different formats.
So here's my silly question, right? How can I put my faith in a tool that when I ask it, as I did recently, how many days between now and September the 9th, it gave me the wrong answer? I mean, that is so Billy Basic that I think, that's the £5 question on Millionaire.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in going any further. Am I being stupid?
No, I think it's a valid point. It's a really valid point. And I think also you have to sort of know the strengths and weaknesses of different models and different tools, and challenge them and not treat
Hang on,
them
if a
as
weakness is you ask it a simple number-based question and it comes up short, that's a pretty big flaw.
They're not designed to do maths.
Yeah, they're not designed to do
So it's words, images, video as well, numbers to some extent, but not designed to do that. Not very good at it. But again, it's today. So now they've realized that and they're re-engineering them so they are better at mathematics. So they can be, my daughter used one as a maths tutor. But I think one of the key things is, I think we're missing here is that you've got this proprietary model and the open source world, okay? A lot of the big players are doing open source, okay? And today, creating a model is, it's like building the Great Wall of China, essentially. It's very difficult to do. It's like opening a bank account 10 years ago. In 2 years' time, it will open a bank account today. You'll be able to set up, train your own model, and it can satisfy any market or any use case you want.
I've got more questions on this, but so have our guests. So let's go to that back row, and then I'm looking out. We've got more coming up on the screen. Yeah, forgive me. Thanks, Steve. Right at the back there. I see you there as well. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Kurt from Sky here. Question for McVal, actually. How do you balance, as a brand, being authentic to your customers, but at the same time using AI to create lots of content and create a tone that probably isn't you?
It's a great question. I would say from what we tell brands that are working with us in that regard, you can create a tone of voice document. You can help structure what you want to say, have ChatGPT or whatever model you're using create a bunch of ideas, create a bunch of content, but it should always have a feedback loop of a human being, editor, or content creator that can add to that. And I mentioned before, it's not about the model necessarily, it's all about the prompt. I think it's sort of funny to say prompt engineering. It's just kind of, giving clear directions. But the more that you can prompt engineer and give the ideal example. So for instance, if you were a copywriter trying to do a tweet thread, or an X thread, whatever they're called now, if you're trying to do that, give the prompt 4 examples of something that you've written yourself, and you can get a lot closer. But I would always have, at the final stage before clicking publish, a human being.
So I've got to add to that. So you're thinking in the CPU world of doing one thing at a time. You've got to think in the GPU world. You can do lots of things at once. So you might have a framework tone of voice, but now you can have different tone of voices for every single class of customer you have, depending on which product they're using, that fits within your corporate tone of voice. So you've actually got to think about things differently.
Massive questions there around what authenticity means, right? Is talking to very different people in very different ways, is that just normal? Or is there something a bit odd about that?
So I think authenticity is going to become the bane of our lives. So whether it's political, no matter what content you see, you are not going to know by the end of this year whether it's real. I mean, you don't really know now, to be quite frank.
All right,
but what you can do there, and I think this may be the final use case instead of stupid meme art for NFTs. that becomes your digital watermark for content.
Oh, right. We'll hold that thought. Okay. Question here, and then we'll come down to the front row here.
This guy.
Yeah, forgive me. Just, yeah, so we'll go there. Actually, why don't we take that first, because you've got the mic, and then I did promise it right back there. Go.
Hi, I'm
Tracy.
Tracy. I help tech startups grow. Now, one of the key things there is the actual founders and the founding team's productivity. So apart from Gemini, Claude, and Anthropic, and ChatGPT-4, what are your top 3 go-to AI productivity tools for each one of you?
Oh, crikey. We're already overwhelmed. Now we're going to be gorged, aren't we? Right. Any, go on then.
I think we've been looking at going through CPUs, GPUs, LPUs, Grok. So Grok is very, very, very fast.
What's Grok then?
So Grok is a large language model. It's not public yet, it's still a private company. Essentially, it's Elon Musk as well invested in it. But essentially, it uses... So CPU is your computer, one thing at a time, but very fast. GPUs are lots of things at once, used in gaming, blockchain, AI. LPUs are not more like a GPU, but not generalist, specialist. They're very, very fast.
Thank you, Tracy.
So in voice, you can have a real-time conversation.
All right, thank you, Piers. So we're going to go back on that diagonal there. No, we're not going to that question. Thank you. We'll go back diagonal. Here's a question. Elena, would you mind having a crack at that for me? Do you think AI will replace more jobs to come? What does this mean for the workforce? You can tell me off later for throwing that at you.
Well, looking at the mass layoffs at the moment, one may assume that this is what is happening. And of course, we have seen some of the biggest companies laying off a lot of people. When you dig deeper, it's actually what's happening. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are women who, might want to go on maternity leave and whatnot, and they're a big risk, and so they're the first ones to go. But of course, in my personal view is that there will not be as such replacement. It will be probably different kinds of jobs that will be created. So my hope is that it's not something to fear. It's something to look openly at what other skills can I add that the machine cannot do? And those are, of course, the human skills.
So help us understand this conundrum, because I would show you a theory that says the jobs that are going to be lost are going to be very low skilled. The jobs that will be created in the future might be very high touch, very high. How do you plot this course that says, don't worry, all the ones that lost their jobs will somehow magically retrain and evolve into the high touch, high skill workers? I can't see how that works in practice.
I see what you mean. I think what we advocate is this multidisciplinary learning, where there is an intersection of so many different subjects and domains, where AI will intersect with marketing, it will intersect with robotics, it will intersect with various areas within geography and whatnot. So when we talk to kids about what's actually happening right now, we say AI is not the domain of computer science. It will not be a domain of computer science.
I think you're worried about this question, though, Elena.
I won't answer.
No, for education, I mean, right?
Education, yes.
Yeah, go on, Piers.
Yeah, so going back to my presentation, so you've got this AI-assisted era, okay, and we are going to be augmented. So a job, you might have 20 tasks. AI can probably do 5. The mundane, the boring stuff, the stuff you don't want to do day to day, not what you entered that career to do, right? So it's going to do more of them, though, over time.
Yeah,
you've got robotic. Now, over time...
Did you know there is a Piers bot, by the way? That's true, isn't it?
I took it down, because I'm creating a new one.
You sacked it.
It wasn't bright enough. But over time, though, there will be a societal issue about human labour.
All right, let's get another question in. Thank you. Yes, please.
So it's Shay from BSI. So I was just wondering, in the explosion of AI, do you think where legislation is so delayed, shall we say, where governments obviously have to implement this, that private companies can actually make up that shortfall by auditing AI tools, so that way it builds on digital trust more globally, and then, we can remove that bias in certain models or prevent bias models from actually being released in the first place?
It's almost a sort of self-policing, if you like, by companies. Is there another question in the studio while we mull on that? Here we go. Here we go. I came round to you eventually, sir. Thank you, Steve, putting his steps in. We go. Our final 3 minutes. There will be pithy panel, please.
Thank you so much. So my name is Aldo. So I'm the CEO for Silver Lining Experts. So I help CEOs understand IT. So one of the things that I'm working with CEOs right now is they say, oh, I can put all of my data in ChatGPT and I can ask you some really interesting questions to give me guidelines. Or I can put my strategy into ChatGPT so they can give me some further tidbits. What are some of the risks that you would share with the rest of the group in doing so?
Yeah, because so Elena, come in on this, but Erika as well, you must be thinking about this because people confide in their coaches, right? That's the whole point.
Absolutely, and the main risk at the moment is bias, and it's a huge risk. The models, the large language learning models that are out there, have only been trained on the data that is already out there in the ether. We are biased societies, and we're biased on multiple levels as well. And so I think that that's quite dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Elena, please do build on this.
Going back to what Erika just said, you know, we are not a very equal society. There are certain biases and inequalities that exist that AI will replicate and it will amplify, magnify. So I definitely would not trust the AI systems to do this. You are effectively training that system as well as you're using. You might not know this, but I wouldn't.
And if you don't mind, McVal, on this question, and sort of as the regulation sort of moves sluggishly, other ways that we can sort of be more proactive.
Gave me the really hard question. Okay, cool. No, I do think that to the regulation point, it's that's something that I've had at the back of my head too, in terms of there's going to be this kind of cottage industry, which may turn out to be a massive, you know, multi-billion-pound industry of auditing and reviewing these models, not only in terms of the model creation and the recommendations around it, but also sort of on the cybersecurity side, when models that are agents rather than tools end up doing things that you don't want, what are the parameters that are put in place to prevent that from happening?
Yeah. So why don't we thank you, McVal? Why don't we begin where we started, Piers? Other than listening to your podcast, if you are feeling as a guest that sense of overwhelm, how would you advise us to keep up with what is going on? Give us a
I'd be excited by it. Yep. It's profound. There are issues we need to deal with, but this is the iPhone 1, right? We're on 15, and it's going to evolve massively. So if you take one thing away from today, forget organizations, use these tools, the paid plans, yourself, to have those conversations. And you know, understand there can be bias as well. There are open source ones, but use it and just learn, because this is inevitable.
Yeah. Thank you for giving us that glass half full perspective. Thank you for your keynote as well. But panel, that was absolutely first class. Thank you so much.